In the fall of 2024, we traveled 5,000 miles from Wisconsin to Glacier National Park and back. On the way, we stayed at and hiked in local and municipal parks, wonderful state parks, and expansive national parks. Here we're counting down our 4 top hikes, and be sure to stay to the end to see the best off-the-beaten trail that became the cherry on the top of our adventures. Now let's get trekking with a couple of honorable mentions. First honorable mention goes to the Notch Trail in Badlands National Park. This is a short trail, only about 1.5 miles out and back, but in that short distance you're immersed in the quintessential Badlands topography, get to climb a steep rope ladder and traverse a canyon wall, and end up with a commanding view of the countryside. Then there's the 4.4 mile Caprock Coulee Trail in the northern unit of Theodore Roosevelt National Park. Going clockwise in just 1/2 mile, you quickly ascend about 315 feet of the trail's total 583 feet elevation gain by laboring up timber stairs. But you're rewarded with magisterial views of the Little Missouri River. Then it's a gradual walk down to the trail's end. When it's over, you've gone about 4.5 miles. Now, let the countdown begin. Coming in at number 4 is the Big Plateau and Elkblom Trail in the southern unit of Theodore Roosevelt National Park. There are a number of factors which make this hike exciting. First, you start out crossing the Little Missouri River, and there are 3 other water crossings along the way. We managed not to get our feet soaked, but I'm not sure that this is always the case as we visited in the fall when the water is more easily forded. Second, there's some climbing as the trail rises 534 feet to the top of the Big Plateau, where you'll see a huge prairie dog town and likely antelope and bison as well, although no bison were visible on our trek. We were blessed to see a bobcat, although we didn't get it on film. We did, however, get to see wild horses nearby. It's a marvelous hike in a less crowded park with many geological features of the northern Badlands, including exposed charcoal deposits visible. If you're in Teddy Roosevelt National Park, do this 5.3 mile hike. Number 3 on our list is the Little Devil's Tower Spur Trail hike in Custer State Park, just outside of Custer, South Dakota. Coming from the flatlands of Wisconsin, this was our first experience with any serious elevation gain as the trail jumps 757 feet in just under 2 miles. A lot for us, maybe not so much for others. In total, it's about 4 miles or so, and thankfully, it's downhill on the way back. What's so cool about this trail is that a large portion of the elevation gain comes at the end of the out portion, as you have to do a rock scramble. It looked daunting, but we went for it, and we're super exhilarated when we made it to the top, that's for sure. And the view from the top, well, it pretty much speaks for itself. The Avalanche Lake Trail in Glacier National Park comes in at our second favorite hike of the trip. This is rated the #1 hike in the park by All Trails, and the trailhead is easily accessible, being only a short distance in from the west gate of the park. So it's always busy, and which is why it's probably rated #1. Get there early if you want a parking spot. This was an amazing first trek at Glacier. You start out going through the trees on the trail of the Cedars Loop and then branch off towards Avalanche Lake. The entire way you're heading up about 760 feet of elevation gain through a completely forested area with occasional views of a peaking mountaintop following a descending river. Again, for us flatlanders, the journey was a tad challenging, but certainly doable. The out and back hike is about 6 miles, and after about half of those, you hit pay dirt as you end up on a log-strewn beach at the north end of the lake. On 3 sides, you're surrounded by towering mountains with a few waterfalls streaming down. I can only imagine what this might look like during the spring melt season. And then on our first hike, we were rewarded with Mama Bear and her baby sauntering carelessly at lake's edge. More wildlife sightings were forthcoming for us on our #1 hike, the Iceberg Lake Trail. Wow, what a hike! One of our longest of the trip, coming in at 12.5 miles, almost 3 miles more than advertised on All Trails, since we had to start at the Many Glaciers Hotel parking lot rather than the actual trailhead due to construction. This will be the case all the way through the 2025 season and into 2026, I believe, so if you're heading this way, be prepared for the extra length. But this earlier starting point ended up being fortuitous because prior to us getting to the formal trailhead, we were treated to an up-close and personal greeting by another mama and her offspring, this time the imposing moose. It was daunting to see them so close. The Odyssey to Iceberg Lake winds upward along a mountain ridge, ultimately rising 1,100 feet before dropping down to the lake. The total elevation gain, once you're safely back home, is calculated at 1,460 feet by all trails. Along the way, you pass weeping rocks, see waterfalls, and cross rivers, traveling ever upward until the lake's cavernous walls are visible in the distance. Finally, we arrived. Iceberg Lake is magnificent. You feel the coolness as you approach, even though there are no actual icebergs in the lake. Seems like climate change has done away with those, but it's grand nonetheless. This is a favorite foraging area for grizzly and mule deer alike. We didn't see any grizzly, but we did see a mule deer. There were a couple of hikers who said a grizzly was nearby about 45 minutes earlier. I hope this just gives you a little taste of why we think this was the #1 hike on our trip. But there's another hike which holds a special place in our heart, and that's the Green River Lake Loop Trail in Bridger-Teton National Forest. At 10 miles, it wasn't the longest, and with under 1,000 feet of elevation gain, it wasn't the hardest, although you're starting out at an elevation of 8,000 feet. There was just something special about this hike. Maybe it was the forested trail skirting the southern shoreline of the lake to the marshy wetlands you cross to traverse the Green River as you head north to the upper lake. Or maybe it was a combination of grand views of Square Top Mountain along with the amazing green color of the aptly named lakes. Or just maybe it was the remoteness and the complete sense of solitude and even danger we admittedly felt. This is both grizzly and mountain lion country, and you could run into either. The ranger station was closed for the season, and we saw only 3 people on the trail, and 2 of them were close to the trailhead. The other was a lone thru hiker, as this is part of the Continental Divide Trail. He was fully decked out with his camping gear, dog, bear spray, a very large knife, and what appeared to be a 9mm handgun strapped firmly to his chest. For mountain lions, he said, not bears. So there you have it, folks, our favorite hikes of our grand adventure. We didn't do all the things we wanted to do. We lost some days due to weather, but you know the unexpected is part of the adventure. I hope you enjoyed this, and hey, if you've been to any of these places, leave your comments below on what your favorite hikes were in those particular areas. Until next time, everyone, cheers, carry on.